So the second lesson in this unit is talking about multiplying our polynomials. And there's a bunch of different methods you can use. I really don't care what you end up picking as long as your final answer ends up being correct and you show your work. So I'm going to show you the different methods and I'll leave it up to you to decide what you like best. Okay? So the vocabulary we need to know today is called the FOIL method. And the FOIL method is basically just an acronym for first, outer, inner, and last, which is just another way of basically remembering the distributive property. So the distributive property and FOIL are basically the same thing. Okay, and then using a table or a box is kind of nice if you're a more visual person and you like to organize yourselves in that way. And you could also just use plain multiplication, which is up to you. I'll show it to you, but personally I think that's a little bit cumbersome. So again, up to you and what you want to do. Okay, so let's take a look at, jump into our first example. So multiply the binomials using the distributive property. So what you're going to do with this distributive property is basically distribute the values from the first parentheses into the second one. So we want to basically say, okay, I'm going to take the x here and multiply to the x plus 2. All right, and I'm going to add that to 8 times x plus 2. This is a plus sign because it's a positive 8. If this was a negative 8, this would be a negative sign there. And then we can go ahead and do the distributive property that we're very familiar with, right? Multiply the outside coefficient, the number, by the two numbers inside. So x times x is x squared. X times 2 is 2x. Same thing here. 8 times x is positive 8x. 8 times 2 is positive 16. And then go ahead and combine your like terms. And if you need to, underline or organize your like terms in some way, go for it. So 2x plus 8x gives me 10x. So the final multiplied product is x squared plus 10x plus 16. So that's your distributive property. Okay? Same thing here. Again, we're just basically going to split up these two values and distribute them separately. So this turns into what? Well, it'll be x times x plus 1 minus 5 times, again, the quantity x plus 1. And then just go ahead and distribute it out. Being careful now that this is a negative 5, so we don't want to lose that negative sign. So negative 5 times x is a negative 5x. Negative 5 times 1 is negative 5. And then let's go ahead and combine your like terms once more. So x squared minus 4x minus 5. All right. One of the biggest errors that I often see with this type of problem is just the negative sign. So you guys want to double check, be careful that your negatives are where they belong. Okay, so let's go ahead and do basically the same type of problem, but now let's look at a table or a box. Okay, so the way I like to create my box is each row or column in my box is going to be one term. So there's two terms here, so that means in my box, I want to go 2 across the top, and one column is 2x, the other column is positive 3. Then I have two terms in the second binomial, so I want two rows down the side. So I have a space for x and then negative 3. Let me close off that box. And then what you basically want to do is you want to find the area of each individual box. So if I just look at this box right here, this is 2x times x, because area is length times width, which is 2x squared. Okay, this one here is 3 times x, so that's 3 times x, which is 3x. This one is negative 3 times 2x, which is negative 6x. And the final one here, it's 3 times negative 3, which is negative 9. If it helps, you can definitely fill out the other lengths. So you can bring the x over here, negative 3, positive 3, and 2x. And again, just look at each box individually. And then we are going to add all the areas. So again, the areas are 2x squared, 3x, negative 6x, and negative 9. And we do want to combine our like terms at the end. So let me just rewrite this first. 2x squared plus 3x minus 6x minus 9. You can write plus negative 6x and plus negative 9 if you want. Combine my like terms. So 2x squared minus 3x minus 9 is my final product. Okay? Same deal for the second one. I'm going to skip that just so this video doesn't get super long, and let's look at FOIL as our last method. And then I want to show you off to the side what traditional multiplication could look like, so you get some options here. So FOIL is basically another way to do distributive property. I'm just going to rewrite the problem so you can see exactly what I'm doing. So remember, F stands for first, so what we want to do is we want to multiply the first terms, x and x. So that's the F part of FOIL. Then O stands for the outside, so that's the outer value, so that'll be x and -7, so that's O. And then we want to add these together, okay? So I'm going to add together my x times -7 to the x times x. And I'm going to keep going. I stands for the inside value, so those are the two inner values. So that blue is I, so that's -3 times x. And then L just stands for the last values. Let's see what color. Here we go, purple. So L would just be -3 and -7. So that purple here is L. And that's what FOIL stands for. So it's just a way to skip that a distribution at the very beginning and give us basically the four terms. So this turns into x squared minus 7x minus 3x plus 21. Again, be careful with those negatives. Let me scoot this up a bit. Combine my like terms. So I'm going to get x squared minus 10x plus 21 as my final answer. So that's FOIL. Okay? Let me show you one more. This is your traditional multiplication. And sorry, my handwriting is super awful today. Let me try that again. So if we look at traditional multiplication, you're basically just stacking, right? So we have 2x minus 1 times, and I'm going to use a dot for times because I don't want to mix that up with the x's, 5x minus 4. You can go through and multiply this just like you do with, double-digit multiplication or triple-digit multiplication. -4 times -1 is +4. -4 times 2x is -8x. Being careful to put your signs there, right? A placeholder, you can put your placeholder in if you want to, but just remember to line up your like terms, and that could help as well. So 5x times -1 is -5x. So I want to line up that like term. 5x times 2x is 10x squared. It helps to rewrite your terms in standard form if they aren't when you're doing traditional multiplication, but again, doesn't matter as long as you line up your like terms, you'll be good. And then add down, and there's your product. Okay? So that is basically the 4 different methods you can choose from. I'm going to have you guys go ahead and try the you try in a moment, and then we'll come back and check your answers. Alright, so go ahead and do 1, 2, 3, and 4 using any method you want, and then we'll come back and we'll check. Okay, so check your work. Notice my answers are all in standard form. I do prefer it if you write your answers in standard form for me, please. It's easier for me to check, also nice and easy to see that you remember what standard form is. Okay? And then we're going to finish this off in class. Remember, like I said, I don't do all the notes on the video just so the videos don't turn out to be super, super long. So please make sure you come back to class with questions. Remember, I make mistakes too, so if you caught a mistake on the video, do let me know so we can check it and correct it for everybody in class. Okay, thank you for listening.